First of all, I want to say thank you for joining, for agreeing to do this. But before we get into it, I want the people who are watching, who may watch this later, who don't know who you are, let us know your name, let us know who you are, what you're about, whatever information it is that you want to kind of, welcome everybody into. Yeah.
So thank you for having me, Tasha. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. My name is NaKisha Henderson. I am from Gulfport, Mississippi. Been here my whole life. Just a good old Southern girl. Let me just say that. And then I am currently a program supervisor with the Mental and Behavioral Health agency here in Mississippi in Gulfport. I am also a life coach. I am someone who is very passionate about mental health. I've been in the field since 1999, always worked with children and families. And, I just felt like this was a good link up for us to just discuss some things that we've been seeing, not only in the world, but things that we've seen throughout our lifetime. And, one of the big things that I love, like I absolutely love empowering children and empowering women. So those two hand in hand for me. I do I do an array of things. Whatever you need me to do, I usually do. Event planner, let me see, motivational speaker, mentor, whatever, is needed of me at that time. And somebody is like, hey, I need your help with something, I'm there. So if I can provide that skill and that service, they can get it.
She said they can get it.
They can get
it. Well, like I said, I appreciate you joining in and having this conversation with me, because so I'm not as consistently active in this arena on a large scale, but it is something that is near and dear to me when it comes to the mental and emotional well-being of our community. And of course, that starts with our children. And like Absolutely. You said, our children, and it's not to diminish the role of men in a child's life at all. It's just that when it comes to that nurturing part, it primarily falls onto the lap of the woman, of the mother. And Absolutely. If the mental well-being of these mothers, who are nurturing our babies, is not set and is not sound, then we're continuing to perpetuate a cycle of brokenness, of emotional trauma, of mental trauma, of sexual trauma to our kids, and we're not fixing the problem. So I think, right. Yes, the family as a whole is definitely something that we need to address. So, but I respect where you're coming from when you say that, you want to make sure that you address the mother and the child, because myself as a single mom, and you spending some of your time as a single mom as well, we recognize the importance of our wholeness, of our own mental healing and emotional healing, to make sure that we're raising the next generation from a more, a complete perspective, as opposed to right. Just saying, well, that's what happened when I was a kid, so it's gonna happen to you too, That's right. But for you, like, where did this passion come from? For those that don't know, Keisha and I, we actually were in elementary school together. We were in elementary school together way back in the day, whenever I lived in Gulfport, Mississippi for a brief time of not living in Louisiana. And she was almost, she was that friend. She was that friend that was so close to us that she was basically like a little sister. I say a little sister. She and I are the same age, but she was another sister in the household. So I know a little bit about NaKisha's, upbringing, as well as she knows a little bit about mine. But from the stance of a child, where does your passion as an adult, from your own individual perspective, come from, as far as like how you are now as a woman and how you raise your own children?
Okay. So I want to say first that I have always been intrigued with, why do people do what they do? Like, as a little kid, that was always something that just drove me. And I'm going to give y'all a little snippet of how I grew up, which is why I feel like, oh my God, I know that other people are growing up like this and I want to help. So I was raised by my grandmother. My dad died at a very early age. He died at, I want to say, I was 3. My older sister was 5. Didn't really know much about them, but my Louisiana family made sure that we knew who they were to play that role. And so my mom had already left my dad by the time he had passed. She had moved back home to Gulfport with my grandmother. And at that time, she went through a period of being married for 5 years, having 3 small children. Here, mama, take these kids. Let me go live my life. So she was in and out of my life. So at an early age, I experienced abandonment. And, you know, from that, I also got fed my grandmother's bitterness from her divorce of my grandfather. A lot of kind of like quick and fast and hard growing up. So as women, you go get it. Don't worry about a man. You don't need anybody for anything. Don't ask nobody for help. So I was rooted in all of this. Of course, some of it is good. I'm not gonna lie. Some of it is that boss mentality, but that's really not true life. There's nobody who's making it on their own without anybody, you know. And so my grandmother worked hard. She put food on the table, but we missed that component of healing and love. I just did. That was not an opportunity for her to heal from what she was going through. And then boom, I got to raise these 3 small kids that my daughter just dropped off. You know, so early on in life, I was exposed to drugs, you know, parents doing drugs, family members doing drugs. There was a lot of sexual abuse. I never experienced it, but my cousins. I experienced just kind of what my cousins were going through, coming back, letting me know. And then my mom would bounce in and out, in and out. And so at an early age, I always told myself, this is just how I dealt with life. I know I became very hardcore. If your mama can leave you, anybody can leave you. And so that just kind of taught me nobody's promised to you. Don't cling on to stuff, you know, just so I grew up that way. And, you know, I am also now that is a product of me, a components of what I'm made of. But I can tell you 100% today, I'm whole now. You know, I healed. I did my work. It took a lot of years. And I think that's why I was so intrigued by psychology. Got pregnant at 16 by the first man that I ever loved and experienced sexually because, hey, I wanted a family. I knew that part. I want a family, you know, but within that, I also allowed him to do whatever he wanted to do to me because that's what you do to keep your man, you know. And so went through that early age. We stayed together for 14 years, wound up getting married, went through a horrible divorce. And then, you know, I wound up being by myself. Never was by myself from the age of 0 to 28. Now you're by yourself and you're responsible for 2 kids. Now what? You know, so I was stuck trying to figure life out, trying to put the pieces together. I had a really good support team, though. By that time, when I did get to that stage in life, you know, me and my mom had repaired our relationship. I had no more hard feelings about it. It was what it was. And looking back now, you know, sometimes God has a funny way of showing you better than he can tell you.
Yeah, oh, so, definitely. That's because some of us are hard-headed. Yeah, that's because some of us are hard-headed.
I judged my mama my whole life until I had my own kids. And here I am going through a divorce, and I wanted somebody to take mine so I could go have fun. So I kind of understood what she was going through. If you got married or fell in love at an early age and y'all don't grow together, but then all of a sudden you out in this world by yourself making your own money, you want to wild out a little bit. You just do. And I
don't even need that much of an excuse to want to wild out. Like I just want to do it just cause.
I just wanted to wild out. And I did, y'all. I did. But I grew so much. I grew mentally. Like I said, I was able to shed a lot of things. I was able to forgive a lot of the people that hurt, not just me, but people, you know, I took it personal if you hurt my sister. I took it personal if you hurt my brother, my cousin. You know, I hated people for years, like literally didn't want to be around them, couldn't stand them. But I grew spiritually. You know, I finally learned a true connection with God, not just going to church, you know, and every now and again saying a hallelujah. It got deeper for me, you know, and then I learned that the people who really loved me, they didn't want nothing from me. They just wanted me to, just wanted to be in my presence.
Just
yes, you know, so, but I carried a lot of that childhood trauma into how I parent. I didn't want my kids to experience any of that ever.
Yeah.
I didn't want them ever to look up in the stands and not see me, because I remember that feeling. I didn't want them to have a Christmas and not have nothing under the tree. You know, so I was that mama single, and I'm gonna make a way. If I gotta go without, they will never know. If I miss a meal, they'll never know. They're gonna be okay though. But
Yeah.
I never had to really go through that. My ex-husband's family was, oh my God, above and beyond, took me in and made sure I felt their love. And if I ever needed anything, a break, a babysitter, $100, they had me. You know, they took care of me and my family too, you know. So I never, even though I was a single parent, I was never a parent that went like by myself without having
That was alone, having to parent. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
and all of the things that you're talking about, those are things that like I can relate to. I don't know if I necessarily had the abandonment issues, but what I do remember growing up was, you know, some of the things that you talked about was, you know, and I say this because I've had this conversation with my own mom, and I had to tell her, I was like, I don't hold any hard feelings toward you. I feel like as parents, you really do what you think is best in that moment. I really don't think that the majority of parents go into the game and say, you know what, I don't care, I'm gonna just do anything, right? They really don't realize the impact of what they are saying, what they are doing, what they are exposing their children to. So I had to have I had to have a very real not a very real but several very real conversations with my own mama, and let her know this is what the things that I've had to heal from. But I know that it was not your intention to have me hurt the way that I hurt, have me grow up the way that I grew up, and feel the things that I feel because of the things that you exposed me to, or the things that you missed the mark on. But you did miss the mark, and I'm sure it hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure my kids are gonna come to me and be like, "Oh, mama, you could have done this better." And mentally, I'm ready for it, but emotionally, I know it's probably still gonna hurt a little bit just to hear that. But growing up, you know, and being the product of basically the side chick's daughter, you know, that's what I was. And then having this man who raised me, you know, and legally adopted me at the age of 2, and growing up calling him daddy, but knowing that that's not my biological father. And even worse, my biological father is maybe 20 minutes down the road raising his own family with his own kids who know nothing about me, but I know everything about him. So it wasn't necessarily an abandonment feeling, but it was a sense of not belonging, because I was so different. I think you may remember that place. Like, I was so different from my sister, so different from my brother. My personality was just this fireball. And that's all my dad's side of the family. That's all of them. And then here's me trying to figure out how I fit into this family that I don't even match with. So there was, you know, the issue of that I'm, you know, I know later on, you know, I don't want to say reared its ugly head, but I realized like how it molded me. The disciplining, you know, my mama was very much a do as I say, not as I do thing. I tell everybody, you know, my mama didn't realize like I can do math. And I realized that as much as you want to sit here and tell me that sex is for marriage only, I'm the product of adultery. My brother and my sister are here before me, and you weren't married with them. I can do math. So like, I know what you're telling me is not true. And she felt like she was doing the right thing by telling me the right things to do, but not allowing me to know the frailties and the fragility and the missteps that she made along the way. And so I didn't trust her. I didn't trust her. I didn't trust talking to her. I didn't trust having real, authentic conversations with my own mother, because I felt like she gonna lie. She gonna lie just like she lied about everything else. And what it did was it made me start looking toward my friends in the streets. You know, fortunately, I did have some adults from my neighborhood who, you know, had an affinity for me, and, you know, kind of tried to rein me in as much as possible. But this is me we talking about. Ain't but so much reining in. But once, and and the same thing, sexual trauma, like I actually experienced it, not only at the hands of strangers and people outside of my home, but family members. And as I got older, recognizing that the older family members were enabling this, and not willfully enable, and not saying, well, hey, we don't care, but not realizing, I don't think, not realizing the level of scarring that this was doing to many of us, to many of myself, my cousins. And when I had to have that conversation with my own mama, it was on the hand, it was because of my own children. I made no qualms about letting it be known. If you leave my children around this person, I will rain down holy fire on this place. And I don't care who gets burned, and I don't care who goes to jail. But just know, this is what y'all setting yourselves up for. But it's because I had grown to that place to where I was like, no, this is not okay. To do as I say, not as I do, it's not okay. I'm not saying that I want my children to go out there and do the things that I did, but I am saying that I want my children to do better. And in order for them to do better, I got to know how, I have to let them know how I did bad.
That's right.
I have to let them know where I made my missteps. I have to let them know where I thought I knew what I was doing and would have no consequences and no residuals. Thank God I'm intact, and physically, mentally, emotionally. But like, I have to have those real conversations, those raw conversations. Another thing, like my family came from that mentality of spare the rod, spoil the child. If they cutting up, beat their ass. Pardon my French. Don't ask. There's no need to have a discussion with a child. They the child, you the parent. As if because you're a parent, you're infallible. But that wasn't the case. Sometimes things deserve a conversation. You can't just put your hands on somebody. Now, look, I'm going to go ahead and go on record right now. Sydney, Lex, and Lissa, them got the backhand a couple times, right? But I also remember whenever I was physically disciplined, I remember what that felt like to be just whipped and just be hurt after.
The fear too.
Yeah, exactly. And
knowing it was coming.
Yeah. But for me, it wasn't one of those like, now I'm fearful of my parent. It's, me being my father's daughter, I'm bullheaded like, that's what we doing.
I'm gonna get sneaky.
Let's go. So that's riling me up even more. I'm like, you want to lay hands? Come on, these ready for everybody. Let's do it. So, so then of course I start associating protecting myself. Yes, as eloquent of a person as I am when it comes to speaking back then, like, you want to settle some stuff? We can settle it by throwing hands. Like, that's what we could do. So it continued to build that violent side of me to be able to resolve things. And once I had my own children, I literally remember there was an incident when I was stationed in Hawaii, and this dude, he cut us off in a parking garage. And I got my son at this point in time, and this is a whole grown man, and I get out of the car and I'm going off. Like, I'm ready to fight this man because of him cutting me off in a parking garage, and my son is in his car seat in the car with me. And I snapped at that moment. I was like, you can't be this person. You can't be that person. You have a child. You cannot be this person. And it was almost like in that moment, I resolved to be to my children what I felt like I wanted out of my own parents, what I needed out of the adults around me. And I had to take some long, hard looks at what was acceptable, what was normal growing up for me, right? And I had to decide that it's not about this is the way it's always been done. It's about what makes sense. What makes sense? I can't just sit back and say, well, because they're a child, what I say goes, and put a period behind that. I have to make things make sense. That's right. That's right, Tasha. As you were talking about, like, all of your experiences and everything, I feel like, yes, I can relate to you, but like you said, it's so many other people out there that relate to our stories, that relate to how we grew up, how we got hurt, how we have had to heal, how we have had to grow. And I definitely wanted to make sure that I break this cycle. And even though it's these painful, introspective moments that you have to look at yourself and say, what have I become? at the hands
Exactly.
of somebody else. What have I become?
Somebody
And
else.
what parts of me are good? What parts of me are right? And what parts of me need to be fixed?
Need to be fixed. Absolutely. And Tasha, you know, this is the key component to getting ready to heal. I always ask people when I'm doing my life coaching sessions, are you ready to heal? Because some people want to stay mad. And if you want to stay
Mm,
mad, it's okay. But you got to give yourself a little time. Set a time. I'm not going to stay mad for a year. You
yeah.
know, when I'm hurt and somebody has literally hurt me to my core, I give myself 2 days. 2 days. You can cry, you can fight, you can talk mad, you know, because my thing is it can last for years. You know, people still walking around with anger and hate of stuff that happened to them when they was a little kid. And you grown now.
Yep.
But the key word you said that stuck with me, I have to give my kids what I didn't get from any adult because I'm all they got. When you are a
Yep.
single mother, even when, I don't even want to just put the single on it.
Nope.
When you are a mother, yes, we can buy them all this nice stuff. We work hard so we can get them all the stuff we didn't have. But gosh dog it, we got to give them some of that other stuff too. The
Yep.
emotional, we got to give them how to treat people in relationships. We have to teach them, you know, you have to teach your children to how to stand in this world without you. That's
Yes.
that's hard. You know, you go
I've
ahead.
said this numerous times because, of course, my son was my first one, and I tell everybody, my son is not a mama's boy, but I am definitely the mother of a son. I adore everything about all of my kids. Sydney just happens to be the one who made me a mama, right?
Yeah,
But I will forever be his mama, but I'm not raising him to forever be my son. I'm
that's right.
raising him to be a man. I'm raising him to be a husband if he so chooses. I'm raising him to be a father if he so chooses, because his time being my son, like in my home, is very
In
short.
your home.
The
Yes,
bulk of his life, he's gonna have to function in this world sans me. Without me, he's gonna have to be out there in this world and stand upright, and I have to be proud of what I send out there.
absolutely.
I can't sit here and look at my baby and I'm gonna say this to a lot of these women that might be paying attention. Don't sit here and raise your boys to be the very men that you can't stand. Whenever we sit here and
Say
raise
it
these
again. Say it
boys,
again. Say it again.
stop raising your boys to be these men that we can't stand.
Yeah,
I and it's not on some Oedipus complex type stuff. It's on reality. And the reality
reality.
is that he is my son. He's my son, my baby, for his entire life. But I only have him for a short while. He needs
That's
to
right.
go out there and be able to function. And I need to make sure that whoever he is out there, that he is representative of somebody that I wouldn't have a problem with my own daughters bringing back home.
Say that again. Say that. That's true.
It's the
That is
truth.
so true.
And what that looks like is I had to make sure that I was getting me right.
That's
I had to make sure that I showed him the proper examples of love. And whenever I had the opportunity, allow him to see what a man and a woman being in love looks like,
what
what
it look
it
like.
looks like for a
Mm.
woman to, to be in a relationship. And
Yeah.
granted, yes, again, I will always say it because I feel like sometimes people act like, when we talk about things, we try to hide it. I know I have had 3 failed marriages. I say failed because there were lessons learned for me. But
Not successful.
even
Just say that.
even even in those situations, I still tried to make sure that my son saw, exceptional qualities of men, and didn't
Yeah.
allow him to latch on to the shortcomings of the men that I was involved with. I didn't allow him to feel that the things that were wrong from my side or from a man's side, if it's wrong, it's wrong. And if your mama was wrong, your mama was wrong.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
from the generations before, I feel like those aren't things that they necessarily did, was acknowledge the wrongs in the midst of that wrong,
Right.
in the midst of that mistake,
Right.
recognizing where you have a teachable moment. You have a teachable
Right.
moment. And in that moment, do you hide and try to present yourself as pious and perfection? Or do you present yourself as a human being who has flaws, who makes missteps and mistakes. And now your child gets to watch you walk out that mistake and make it right.
Right.
And those are the things that I've tried
Right.
to do with my children, because they are my children, but eventually they will be out in this world and they need to be properly equipped, not just in their, academia, not just in their physical being, but in their heart, in their mind. They need to be ready to go out there.
That's true.
Doing better to raise our babies, and showing them what wholeness looks like, showing them what, healthy relationships look like,
Mm-hmm.
even in the process of the bad relationships that they may see, so of course, like I said, I know the dynamics of your family, but when it comes to how, you grew up with this mentality of don't get attached, which I think there's a little bit of value in that, right? There's
a little bit.
There's a little bit because don't get, totally dependent and totally attached to anything, any person, any idea, any notion, because none of those things are permanent, right?
Right.
Or guaranteed for permanence. But having your daughters grow up, of course, now as young women, watching you and having this relationship, how do you think, what were some of the things that you did to try and make sure that they had that healthy balance of understanding that it's okay to love, it's okay to be vulnerable to somebody and build a relationship, but still, working through your own stuff.
Yeah. I think one thing for me was when I made the decision to divorce their dad, because things had gotten really, really bad at the end, to where it was some physical abuse. It was the cheating, it was the going back and forth. I don't know if I want you, I don't know if I want her, and everybody in your ear, you don't have time to think, you don't have space. And I will say this for any fellas that's listening: if the woman you love is on the verge of leaving you and she asks you to give her some time, give her some time. Because not giving her time will push her where she may not want to go. But she can't, I could not think, I could not do, it was so loud all the time. And so I remember praying to God, get me and deliver me, and I'll never go back. And I told God that. I remember saying that if you get me out of this, I will never go back, because I was living in hell. It was hell for me. And so I also had that little thing in the back of my head. What would you want your child to do? Because if you want your child to do it, it got to be good enough for you. It got to be. So I took my own advice, and then it was very rocky for about a year. I'm not gonna lie to you, because like I said, I wanted to part. I wanted to live from 16 to 28. I was with the same man, doing the same thing, making sure he was okay. And I never looked after me and found out who I was. Well, I took a 2.5-year sabbatical and not giving a damn about what people thought about me. And I just lived life. And I had a great ass time. But when it was time for me to sit on down, I sat on down. You understand me?
Yeah.
But my children watched that. They watched my tears. They watched me fight. They watched me get back up. They watched me dust myself off. And I think in those lessons, they saw the full phase of a woman, how you can break her, how she can, plead to God to be rebuilt, how she can be rebuilt, how she can diddle-daddle and some stuff and learn herself. So, I've had this conversation with my daughters. What has my life taught you? And opposed to me being quiet, don't want nobody to bring up my ugliness, I do it for myself. Let me tell my own story, because that way I get it right. You only see it from your perspective. Kids, your parents will only show you what they want you to see. So I made sure I started being honest with them. If they had questions about why I was doing something, I just went ahead and shared it. I just went ahead and told them, because they deserve that. You watched this part, but you may not know the factors that led up to it. So it wasn't until, I want to say my oldest daughter, who's 26 now, when she got about 22, she said, I was mad at you for a while because you never sat us down and told us why you was divorcing daddy. She's like, you never said it. And in my mind, you 13, you don't know why I'm leaving your dad. You know, so
Nope.
I never told, I missed that, y'all. I missed that piece of you need to know why I can't be with your father. Because all
Yeah.
she knew was divorce. And once again, looking from a kid's eyes, that's all she knew was her mom and her daddy together. She didn't know us separated.
Yep.
Because ever since she was born, we were together. And then I brought another child, you know, my second daughter into it. Now she was 7. So she really had a hard time. I'm talking about cutting up in school. But then I realized, Keisha, who wouldn't have a hard time? They saw me as breaking their life up. You know,
Their
they
whole
saw
world.
me,
This was
their
their world.
world,
This was
their
their
world fell
world,
apart.
and it was you that was
Mm-hmm.
destroying it. What I love that you're talking about, though, is the fact that you didn't realize that, yes, you owe your children an explanation. You do, because you are taking what makes sense to them, and you have to tell them why what makes sense to them is not healthy for you. And if it's not healthy for you, it's not going to be good for them. And you have so many people, like I've had these conversations where people will say stuff like, they my kids, I don't owe them shit. What?
Either today or tomorrow. You gonna owe them. Yeah.
You gonna owe them, and guess what? It collects interest. It collects interest. So I suggest you go ahead and pay that fee right now and have a little conversation. And it's not, see, there's a difference between asking for permission and having a conversation. You're not asking them for permission. You are trying to help them understand why grown-ups make the decisions that they have to make. Because
absolutely.
You can sit here, he could have been a perfect father. And you could have been a perfect mother. That don't mean that y'all were perfect husband and wife.
Together.
So that whole, the fact that people feel like, I don't owe that to my child. Yes, you do. You do. Whenever you create these worlds for your children, whenever you create this stability for your children, even in its toxicity, their childish mind sees this as their stability, sees this as their rock, sees this as their world. And now you were saying, for no reason, I'm about to go shift this all up. It's a conversation that needs to be had. So like, I love that I love that your daughter came to you and was like, Mama, like you missed that part.
You missed it
like
up.
Because if you had a conversation with him, now granted, it may have, like, who knows, but it's obviously, it was something she needed during that time. She needed you to talk about it. She needed you to let her know, why is my world changing? Because this is the only world I've known. Now you're about to pick me up from Mississippi and dump me in India. Why are we going to India?
Why are we going there?
You know, in her heart, that's what's happening.
Yep. And see, it wasn't until she had that conversation with me, because honestly, I'm looking, she had a child like mine, me growing up so quick at 13, I would have been able to put the pieces together. My daddy hit my mama getting tired of it. My daddy got women, he get mad, he hit my mama ready to go. I'm ready to go. But you see, with kids, that's not how they operate. And we want to take our adult minds and say, you know what's going on. You know, be mad with them about just asking a simple question for clarification. But I refuse to let them grow up in chaos. That's not what I wanted. So I would rather have pulled away, start all over again, and let's just go from there. You know,
I need to pause for a second.
Go
I
ahead.
hate having to interrupt you, but I feel like this is like, I hope I don't know if you've noticed the value and the like, why you should be proud in that very moment of what you were just talking about, right? You said that you were thinking to yourself, at the age of 13, I would have been able to put the pieces together. But that's because you had the mind of an adult, because you grew up too fast, right? But here it was, you did the right thing as a mother, and you allowed your child to be a child. Therefore, she has the mind of a child. She's not putting it together. You did the right thing in raising a child and protecting her innocence, right? So no, she's not gonna understand it.
She's not gonna get it.
She's not just gonna put 2 and 2 together, because she's seeing it as a child. So here it is. It's a double-edged sword, right?
Yes, it is.
You did you did your job as a mama.
Yeah.
You protected her. You kept her innocent as a child, but yet your traumatized mind and heart is expecting this 13-year-old to pick up on
To get
things
it.
like a 26-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Girl, you better come on. I
I'm
didn't even
saying,
broke it down like that, but you got it.
it's true.
Yes, you got it.
So, so I do know that you have, you know, grown-ups now. These girls are grown-ups. These girls
Yeah.
are young women. One with her own family, from you know what I recall keeping up with. And now that you watch her as a mom, you know, how do you feel like, you know, yeah, you know, do you feel
She
those
got it.
moments of pride where you like, she's better than me. She's
She
better
got it.
than me.
She got it. Yeah, you did it. You know, and I think because she did it her own way. You know what I'm saying? Like I never got, well, with my husband I have now, falling in love with somebody and being forced to love somebody are two totally different things.
Yeah.
So with her dad, it was forced love because I had a baby. Well, if I have a baby, then that means we're supposed to be together. You know, she fell in love first. And this man wholeheartedly loves her. If she needed breath, he'd give it to her, honey. So to see that and know that your child is in good hands with somebody, I couldn't ask God for nothing better, you know. But I also know she had to walk to the beat of her own drum, not Keisha's story. You know, I often get caught up in that. I'm gonna tell you, I just had an aha moment because she's pregnant with her second child, and she always, yeah, and it's a girl.
Congrats.
She'll never touch, her feet will never touch the ground. But anyway, I thought her plan should be, you need to wait 2-3 years. But that's not what she wanted to do. My daughter and her husband are not 21 years old like I was when I had 2 kids, or 23 when I had 2 kids. So that's their plan. You know, it comes a point in your life where you have to pull away. But once again, it's those old thoughts that were embedded in me. My grandma always said, "Don't have no more than you can take care of." And I was like, "Well, if you married, it don't matter. Don't have no more than you can take care of." You know, because to her, she just giving me nuggets of what she had to deal with. She had 6 kids by herself. When my grandfather left, guess how many she had? She had 3 left because the other 3 had gone, but she still had to take care of them. And here come 3 more. You know, so that's why she don't have no more than you could take care of. And those type of things that we don't even realize crush our spirit and really messes us up. And they may be meaning good. You may be meaning good as a parent, but you gotta watch the negative seeds you plant, because all you doing is going off of bitterness. You grew bitterness.
Your own bitterness, your own hurt, your own traumas. Now you're taking all of that mess and you putting that onto the next root. And
the next one.
Now they going into the situation totally jaded because those little seeds that you planted so early on, now life is watering them. Life is watering them, and you like, oh, that's what she was talking about.
Yep.
No, we're not having no more kids. And now you start pushing that onto the next one. Like if you don't pay attention to these seeds that are growing, these you know, these weeds. You know, because yes, there's some seeds that turn into magnificent fruit and flowers, right? But then there's some that's just these weeds that grow and tangle up your heart and your head, and it screws up how you feel and how you think, and it's just not right. So then you got to get to the point to where you get to the root of that, right? You get to the root of that weed, and you recognize that, wait a minute, I'm carrying around the bitterness of my grandma. Like, think about
my grandmother. Yes.
It wasn't even a choice that I made. I'm taking stuff from way back that I wasn't even, like, I probably wasn't even a witness to. I wasn't even there for it. But because of those little words, those, you know, and we always, and somebody posted about it today, and I actually posted it in my story. I'll try and bring it up again. But what she was talking about is like, the childhood traumas are far beyond just a physical violence. Like we always want to talk about putting your hands on your children. Like, oh, stop beating your kids. Stop beating their brains. Stop beating their heart. Like, stop that part too. Because violence is violence. And it's all going to create these traumas that as adults, now we got to work our way through and hope we can, we have the stamina, because it's work. It's work.
Yeah,
Because
it's
while
work.
you're raising your own children, you got to work on yourself. You got to raise yourself. You got to raise yourself up out of the mess that has been created from the generation before you and the generations before them. So the things that we say, I love, like you were talking about that. We have got to stop thinking that trauma is all about something that physically happens to you, something that you can see and like literally, like paint out an entire picture of, because sometimes it's just a simple word. Sometimes it's a simple act of neglect. Like you said, having, your mom walk out. She didn't physically do anything to you, but what she did crushed a part of you.
Crushed, yes. And it made me have that feeling of, I don't ever want my children to experience that. Some things do make you stronger. I think everything that I've ever been through absolutely has made me the woman that I am today, made me able to elevate me to the next level, the next level, the next level. However, some of that stuff are tough lessons to learn at 8, at 10, at 13, so those type of things, as opposed to, like I say, growing up fast. I was keeping kids by the time I was 6 and 7 years old, keeping my cousins and stuff, so when you have in your mind my outlook and my view of how I wanted my children to turn out, it's not because of just me. Once again, I use the whole village to help me, but I am so proud of them, of who they are as women. That second girl, I can't tell my second girl nothing. So I have to come at her correctly, because she will be like, Mom, now this is my life. Now she'll be 21 next year, but these girls are independent. They make their own money. I know. And
I'm gonna say they getting old. I'm not gonna say we getting old. Jesus, these children are grown.
Yeah, but she makes her own money. She doesn't ask me for a dime. She loves to work. But I'm gonna tell you, Tasha, she dropped out of school. I don't want to say dropped out. She took a break, because I know she going back. She said, Mom, I can't. Yeah, but I'm not used to that. I want to tell you what to do. You understand what I'm saying? You need to do what I tell you to do, because I know what's best. But once again, I'm going on what's best for Keisha life. See, you really have to step back sometime as a parent and just say, this is their life. They're going to have to live with their choices the way you live with yours. And as long as you don't see them damaging themselves, let it go.
Yeah, or damaging somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, like, so, and I completely understand that. And I think one of the reasons why I'm so big on, I have to accept the decisions that they make for themselves, is because I remember, like, growing up, because of how I was, and I was so different from everybody else. Girl, look, I remember when I told my daddy I was going into the Army, this man told me, you'll be back in 2 weeks.
You can't just leave the Army, Daddy.
No, he just knew, because I was such a firecracker. Like, I was going to end up getting in a fight with somebody.
Oh, you wasn't going to make it.
Yeah, he was like, they're going to send you back home. But I knew, like, I wanted something else. So that was my way out, right?
Yep.
But you had people that believed that my life should be a certain way. I should do certain things. But I definitely shouldn't have gotten married at 19. I definitely should not have had a child at 20. I should not have done this. I should not have done that. But it was my life, right? You can advise me all you want. You can advise me. You can tell me whatever it is up under the sun. But I'm still going to do what it is that I want to do.
That's
and
right.
unless you are paying for my decisions, and when I say paying for my decisions, I'm talking about, if I'm making if I have a baby at 20, if you're not having to take care of him, what's your complaint?
Who are you? Yep.
If I'm not asking you for money, what is your complaint? So that was how I lived my life. So I know I can't expect anything less from my own children. I can advise you all I want, and I can be very stern in my advice. I can be very convicting in my advice, which, is wrong. But I can say any and everything under the sun, but at the end of the day, you know, my son, he's the only one. He's 23.
Mm-hmm.
He's 23.
Mm-hmm.
I can advise you all I want, but as long as I am not financially footing the bill for you, as long as I'm not, you know, you are not becoming a menace to society or nothing like that, it is your life. And I am proud of my son. Like, he's still doing great, you know. But of course, he's a man, so he's gonna make his choices. He's gonna make his life, and that is what I raised him to do. I raised him to make decisions, stick behind his decisions, and come what may, that was your decision.
That was
and
your
it's
decision.
The same thing with my daughters. I know what I desire for them.
Yeah.
But I also know they got my blood in their veins. So the likelihood of them doing everything the way that I think it should be done, slim to none. And same thing, your youngest daughter, my baby, child, she'll check me in a minute. And she's 16. I mean, of course, she'll do it respectfully, but like
in a respectful way. Yeah.
She ain't got no qualms about saying, mama, what you said, but this is what happened. So, but that's the way that, you know, that's part of me going against that grain of my family and them telling me this is, well, because I'm your parent. And if anybody wants to verify this fact, you can go ahead and look up my mama and go and ask her if this is true or not. But I remember when I was in high school, I was so defiant about everything. Some of the stuff was rightful, but most of it was not. But I remember I would get so irritated with this statement, because I said so. Because I said so. You want to make me mad as a teenager? Say that to me. Because I said, no, it's not because you said so. What is the reason? Why?
What's the reason? What's the reason?
Make it make sense. And so I remember I got into an argument with my mama, and she told me, you know, because I said so. And I was like, I am never going to tell my children that. She's like, okay. Literally drafted up a document. I say a document, wrote it out on paper. I wrote it out and said, you know, wrote my full name, you know, and I did it like all professional and everything, being sound mind and body on this day, do declare that whenever I do have children, I will never say because I said so. She had my brother and my sister witness that paper, that document, and we all signed it, and they put it in a file. I don't know, she may still have it, she might not, but that happened. Yeah. And I have been a mother for 23 years, and I have never said that. I've never said it, because I think just because I laid down and made a child does not give me the right to just say things just because. If I want you to go to your friend's house because I don't trust your friends, or because I feel like you are not at a maturity level to deal with what I think is going to be happening at those parties or whatever, I'm going to have that conversation with you, and I'm going to tell you, I don't think you're ready for what they really about. And if you want to be mad at me because that is what I really think. Don't be mad at me because I gave you some arbitrary statement of because I said so.
Because I said so.
I don't say that to me.
That's what that means. Because I said so means don't challenge me. I know more than you. What all people are asking for is a why. People tend to do a whole lot better when you give them the why behind it. We raising adults. We're not raising little robots. Because they gonna challenge. That's what a kid does.
They should.
Yeah, they should. They absolutely should. But in a respectful manner, like we just said, you know, neither one of my daughters have bowled up at me and wanted to fight me. Thank you, Lord. But I have, you know, that's what I grew up with. And I think that I just gave them what I never had. And that has to do with wholeness of emotional wholeness, healing. You know, like I said, sharing your story with your kids. A lot of people feel like they don't need to know my business. Yes, they do. It will repeat itself through your children. It will show up in your kids. And you're like, they knew nothing about how I did that. But that's just how life is. Prepare them for certain things. You know, the scariest thing for me was college. They went off to college. I never went off. I had to do my college here, wherever I went. But they went off to school. And I'm thinking, oh, Lord, they gonna date rape. somebody gonna slip something in their drink, they're gonna be driving, they're gonna get killed. You know, like the fear overcomes you because you've been through these things. You've lived through these things. And I have one thing that keeps me centered, Tasha. No lie, this is what keeps me centered, and I tell people this. The same God that watched over me while I did all my stupidness is the same God that's going to take care of them, because that's his daughter too. Those are his children also. And so I know for a fact that they are covered, not by just my prayers, by other people as well. And I just have to really not try to think so hard about it. Because it goes back to what you said, not only the physical abuse of the body, but physical abuse of the mind, planting those seeds of anxiety, of fear, of not being good enough. We do that as parents. Parents will really mess their kids up because of their fear. I'm going to project fear onto my child. COVID. I have seen so many little kids so scared to get COVID. Not saying they can't. And I want us to live. I don't want us to live in fear. I want us to be proactive. And I want us to be healthy. And it's
live responsibly.
That's it. But there are so many little kids. I saw a child crying when it was time to go back to school because she did not want COVID. And I'm sitting here thinking, there's no way a 7-year-old would have that reaction unless a parent exposed it to them. So you got to be careful what you exposing your kids to. We have to. Not just TV, internet, songs. Sometimes it's us. We are the poison. A little bit of poison is still poison. So we have to be careful with that. You know, trauma, not only just the physical trauma that we go through, but also, I don't know if you have ever heard of ACE studies or ACE scores. It's adverse childhood exposures. So I may not go through it, but I might have grew up with an alcohol or a parent addicted to substance abuse, a parent who went to jail. I might have witnessed domestic violence. Those things are still childhood traumas to us, or just trauma, because we are watching it to the people we love. They're going through it, you know? And so we grow up with this mentality of, I'm going to keep it safe. I'll keep it in the bubble. Nobody can grow like that. Nobody. You got to learn how to deal with the world. We have to. And if you refuse to talk and heal, you'll never be fully released. You'll never reach that mountain peak of just breathing, you know?
It's about having, you know, like you said, whenever you first started out, right? It's about controlling the narrative. You know, like the reality is that, you know, yes, there's a lot of crazy and horrible things out in this world. And we're not saying sit your child in front of a television and let them watch all the mess that's happening. That's not what we're talking about. What we are saying is, you as an adult who has lived X amount of years, A, has your own set of experiences. B, as an adult, you're out there and now you're seeing all of this stuff that's happening. So it's your responsibility to take this and put it in a healthy way and hand it over to your children and say, this is what it looks like. You know, I have conversations with my children, you know, like some parents are like, oh my God, you know, I would never ever talk to my kids about having premarital sex. I'm like, premarital sex, I let them know I was fucking in high school. And like, listen, like that's reality. So whenever I sit here and I tell y'all these things, I'm not telling y'all this is what happens at parties because that's what I heard, because I was doing it.
I know. I was one
of the ones that was doing it. So when I have these conversations, they looking at it like, you know, wow, like her life was so interesting. But I also tell them your life can still be interesting, minus you taking these gambles that I did.
You better say it.
I was fortunate, right? I was fortunate. I got kept. I'm good. But those things could have turned out horribly wrong for me. And rather than me just sending you out there and saying, nah, cause I said so, I'm gonna tell you why I don't want you to go. Because this is what happens at parties, and I don't think you are at a emotional and mental place to make the right decision whenever this stuff happens. So what that does for my child is it starts to help them to prepare themselves and say, well, if I want to start going to these parties, I have to show my mama that I
Right.
know how to be responsible, that I know how to make decisions on the fly for the small things. So if I'm out at a party with one of my friends, I know how to make decisions on the fly for the big things. So
That's
you
right.
have to have those real conversations. And I wish I had had those sort of conversations with my mom. You know, I wish she had had those tough conversations that would have prepared me to. No, I ain't saying I wouldn't have done it. I probably still would have
Right,
done
right.
it. Cause you know Boone's Farm and Strawberry Hill. But I would have at least had an idea of what I was getting ready to walk into, and had some sort of game plan of, if I am going to do this, how am I going to do it responsibly? You know, so yes, it may be a setup to teach your kid how to get away with things the right way. But I feel like what it's also created in my home is a level of respect, not fear.
That's right.
And a desire to not disappoint. And to,
right.
Like, I've taught you better. So whenever I tell you all of these things, go have fun at the party, enjoy yourself. The rest of them have a curfew at midnight. Sure, your curfew is at midnight too. But one of the things that my daughter said to me a while back, this was, I can't remember which one of them said it, but I mean, they were probably 15, 16, 17, whatever this conversation happened. But they said, Mama, we spent majority, like the last 15, 16 years gaining your trust. If we go out there and mess up, we don't have another 15 years to gain it back. I was like,
she got it. She got it.
Listen, because the truth is, you can go out there and you can cut up, but is that a gamble you want to take whenever you know you don't have the time to regain my trust? Whenever you only got another 2-3 years left in this house, you want to spend it on lockdown? So let me have these conversations. Let me have these conversations with you and let you have very real perspective of going out into that world, because I don't want to hide my truth to make me look better. I would much rather have a genuine relationship with you.
Yeah.
Not to where you
absolutely.
think, oh, well, my mama's gonna lie like I did, to where you go in and talking to everybody else instead of talking to me.
Right.
So all of those things that, we experienced growing up, those were hard things, whenever you look back from the eyes of a mother, the eyes of a parent, you look back and you're like, oh, dang, like, I can't believe they let me go through that.
Yeah.
I can't believe no adult stepped up. I can't believe somebody didn't fix it. But then we become the adult, and it's our job to do something. It's our job to fix it. It's our job to recognize that, okay, this is not right, and I need to do better for my children, so my children can do better for their children.
That's right.
And so on and so forth. So this the post, for those that hadn't seen it on my in my story, is from Latinx Parenting, and it says, breaking generational cycles of trauma and harm for our families requires acknowledgement of all ways in which we are violent. Like that's right. Like that's big. Like let's acknowledge the violence aspect. It says it's not just about physical force. Violence is also when we label, minimize, compare, demand obedience, use sarcasm, gaslight, shame. Violence is a vibe. And when I saw that, I was like, one of my friends, she tagged me in it, and I was like, this is a whole word. Violence is a vibe. And even as parents, we have the capacity to be violent toward our children.
Yes.
Beyond just putting our hands on them.
Yes. Beyond putting your hands on them. And I also want to add, because I know we're wrapping up real soon. We have a hard time sometimes in Black families speaking up for the people who don't have a voice. If we know that a child has experienced sexual abuse, but we also know that's grandma's favorite son, and we don't want to say nothing, that silence, y'all, is that you are in agreement with that to that child, and you taking that child's innocence away to protect a grown person, because we can handle this in the family. See, that happened to us in our family, and everybody knew my cousin was being sexually abused. Not one adult stepped up and said anything, because My auntie didn't want to lose her husband. She was gonna handle it. She was gonna handle it, you know. And my cousin to this day is still mentally disturbed. That's the best way I can put it. There's no medicine that can help her. There's no counseling that can help her. It has truly messed her up. And when she confronted her mom, it broke her. Because when she finally became an adult and confronted her mother acted like that never happened. So don't ever, if somebody is coming to you to heal, parents, please hear me. If somebody is coming to you to heal, and they only need the truth, they don't need money, they just need you to validate that it happened, give that to them. Give it to them. I mean,
yep.
Just say, you know what? But you know, people don't want to own, Tasha, that they.
It's pride. It's pride and ego.
They don't want to own that they messed up.
Yep. That's what I said. That's pride and ego.
Your child, yes. I failed my child for a relationship, but guess what happened to her? That happened to her. That happened to the one before her. If you refuse to talk about it, it's gonna repeat itself. You didn't dig the root up. You didn't dig the root up. You know.
Yep. And that takes you going on a little scavenger hunt within your own heart, finding out where this stuff comes from. When did it get planted into you? To where now you're trying to take the seeds from that same plant and put it into your child. Woo! You got to do the dirty work. I literally just had a conversation with my therapist. It was my appointment today before I got onto this, and that's what we were talking about. You know, that internal work is hard. It's dirty, and yes, we gonna have them ugly cries and feel like we failed and we messed up. But once you do that, then you can start getting to the rebuilding phase. Once you acknowledge that it's there, now what do? We dig that mess up, we undo it, and yes, your heart might beat a little bit differently because now you done untangled it up out of these weeds. Your brain might, move a little bit differently because you untangled it from out of these weeds of bitterness, hurt, betrayal, abandonment, all these other things. But eventually you're gonna realize, like, this is how it should have been all along. But that mess got to be addressed. It has to be addressed. And you got to let go of the pride. You got to let go of the ego. And you might have to accept a little bit of the shame. Put that on yourself.
That's
like Keisha said, deal with it a couple of days. Mine lasts a little bit longer than a couple of days sometimes. But set your time frame. Set your time frame and acknowledge that, all right, you know what? This is a process. And when we say a process, that means that there's steps to it, right? There's things that you go through stuff. So give yourself time to be hurt, to be mad, to be disappointed, whatever negative feeling comes along with it. Give yourself time for that. Then let's move on and let's grow and let's be better and let's give our kids better. Let's give our relationships, our romantic relationships better. Because we didn't get onto that too much when it comes to how that childhood trauma affects our romantic relationships. But that's a very real thing. And if we keep talking about it and people like, we joke about it like, oh, that relationship is toxic. That shit ain't cute. It's not cute. It's not funny. But it's become so normal, right?
It's normal. It's normal.
That childhood trauma that we dealt with in whatever capacity from a parental to a child stance, that bleeds over into our romantic relationship. It bleeds over into our friendships. It bleeds over into our professional lives. It can bleed over into any and everything because those weeds have no boundaries. It's going to affect whatever it is that it wants because it's there. It's up to us to take the time to get to it and fix it.
That's right. That's right.
So
you're going to have me back so we can touch on that.
Girl, listen, anytime you want to come, I enjoy it. Like I said, my whole purpose with Talks with Tasha is because we're all normal, everyday people, but we all have stories. And just like with our children, right? I'm not some exceptional mother. You and I, yes, we grew up together as children, but we spent a lifetime apart from each other. But our stories, we still have the same stories, right? We are mothers who are trying to make sure that we take everything that we grew up as with children and become better mothers so our children can be better than what we were, right?
That's right.
So when I have these talks with normal everyday people about just life and society and what we're experiencing, just being people. I feel like even if there's one person who leaves off of this, this chat today and says, you know what, I need to do better, then we're good. If one person leaves off this chat and says, I am better, I'm good. So that's why I like having these conversations. And I love having conversations with people who want to be authentic and want to be genuine and possibly expose some of the things about our own lives that many people are walking around with and they're shameful for. It might give them a little bit more courage to say, you know what, I don't need to be ashamed. We all trying to get this life right, all of us.
That's all. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Again, so go ahead, let everybody know who you are, how to find you, all your social media stuff. And like I said, we'll set something up because I definitely will have you back.
All right, girl. Well, you can. I am on, I don't do Twitter, y'all. I know I've been talked about so bad, but I am on Facebook. NaKisha White Henderson, life coach, personal life coach. I am on Instagram as Keisha _ so kindly, and Keisha is KISHA _ so kindly. I'm just a regular everyday person. I feel like God gave me a gift to help other people heal, and that's really what I spend a lot of my time doing. I do mind, body, spirit, and relationships, and that's really who I am in a nutshell. What you see on Instagram is exactly who I am in real life. I don't sugarcoat. I don't try to pretend and make things be something that they're not. I give it to you real and I give it to you raw. And I also, if you would like services of a life coach, you can also hit me up. Let me know. I'll make sure I take care of you.
Support our Black businesses, people. But again, Keisha, thank you so much. As always, I enjoy talking to you. We could sit here and go on for days.
Yes,
but thank you very much. I'm about to go and get myself together. But for everybody that's out there, you can go ahead, like it, share it, whatever, but it also will be put on YouTube. But nonetheless, I appreciate y'all joining in, and I will be back here again next Tuesday with somebody new with another conversation. So have a good night.
Thank you, Tasha.
You're welcome.
Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.